Okay, for people joining this live stream, we are looking at functions that were tagged as experimental in previous versions of Wolfram Language, and the question is, can we make them not experimental going forward? Okay, we're looking at machine learning methods.
I changed my mind on the first one. So these are the first four are all methods for learn distribution. And I think this one we should actually change the name because contingency table seems obscure to many people. And now we're going to have categorical distribution in 12.1 as a top level distribution. So I think we should call it categorical.
Method arrow categorical, because it will return a categorical distribution. Is that what you're saying?
No, it returns a learned distribution. So it's a method of learned distribution. So it always returns a learned distribution.
Mm-hmm.
But the method underneath is really the categorical distribution. It's the same thing, except that at the time we didn't name the top level. So, for example, for multinormal, I call it method multinormal because we have multi-normal distribution in the system, and I didn't call it Gaussian or
Well, except that Gaussian is called normal distribution.
Exactly, in the system. That's why the method is also called. Actually, yeah, I call it multinormal. We could change. Okay, yeah, actually. Okay, that's another thing that has been bugging me. Yes, I called it multinormal, and I had second thought of just calling it normal, even though it works both for univariate and multidimensional. That's another thing we could change.
Look, if this is about the distribution, we better call it normal distribution because having a method arrow normal is pretty weird.
Oh, so you mean to keep it multinormal?
No, I mean to call it normal distribution.
Oh, okay, normal distribution.
And categorical distribution, but I don't know if that's correct. Learn distribution with method arrow categorical distribution. Is that sensible or does that not make sense?
In the context of learn distribution, I think the distribution is a bit redundant, but...
well, kernel density estimation, what is the distribution associated with that?
It's a mixture of normal distribution. So,
and how does that differ from Gaussian mixture?
Gaussian mixture, I mean, in kernel density estimation, you have the same number of distribution as the number of data point. When Gaussian mixture, it finds, like clusters.
Do we really want no shade of blue in these to indicate that they're links?
Maybe, I mean, I got used to the gray, but
doesn't matter. But I don't know what to make of these names. And where's neural network? It's not even listed here.
Neural network is not. So no, this neural network was the last method of classify, predict that is experimental. And
I see.
Yeah, which I think it should stay experimental because we change our minds so much with this method. So although now we have a more prudent, more careful strategy. Now there's small number of hyperparameters. Like we add hyperparameters only when we're sure that we are going to keep it. Like network depth, seems like a parameter that will be here to stay. But many times, networks can mean so many things that an hyperparameter don't make any sense at some point. And
well, maybe we shouldn't just have a single neural network method.
Thought about that. Yeah, we thought about that. But we could also have architecture, convolutional architecture, recurrent. Yeah, we've been debating internally about that. Many neural network method or just one, and so which is why I think it should stay experimental. Like the neural network world, we're not exactly sure how it's going to evolve.
Okay, let's look down this list here. Okay, so these things are basically using a certain kind of distribution for the learn distribution, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the name of that type of distribution? Like, for example, how would we make a Gaussian mixture in our standard distribution framework?
Actually, I think it's Gaussian mixture. Let's have a look.
Isn't it mixture distribution?
I think there's something specific for that, right? Oh no, it must be a method of clustering. No, it would be with mixture distribution, yes. But it's also a method in like fine clusters, I assume.
Okay, so I mean, the question is, are these named and branded methods?
Oh yes, they are. Gaussian mixture is a big brand. Kernel estimation is a big brand, so I have no doubt about these two names.
Okay.
Decision tree is a big brand. Contingency table, they would use it more in statistics. They would talk about contingency table.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a big name. And multinormal, because there's Gaussian and so on. And actually just a normal versus multinormal. So both of them
where's normal? It's there's a new method that you might add, which is just a normal distribution, or are you saying multinormal should be called normal?
Well, multinormal also works when it's not many variable. If you just give a bunch of numbers and you say method multinormal is going to work, so it's actually not a multinormal.
But most of the time you're not using line distribution to learn.
Most of the time, no. That's why I just call it multinormal. And also, I think I had the same feeling as you, like just method goes to normal was a bit weird. If the language didn't already have a multinormal symbol, which actually might be able to work with only one variable, just a vector of length 1.
I'm sure it does.
So yeah, if they didn't have this symbol,
I would have multinormal or multinormal distribution in my view. Well, they're all distributions, so we just calling it
multinormal is good. Multinormal is good, yeah.
Okay, categorical though seems odd, and given that most of these are essentially brand names for methods, I would have thought that I don't understand why you want to go away from, if contingency table is any kind of reasonable brand, why you want to go away from that.
Just because we're going to have a symbol that is called categorical distribution, and that is
but how close is what this is doing to a categorical distribution?
Same thing. It is a categorical distribution contingency table. It's right, discretize every variable, and you have a big multi-dimensional array, and just store a number.
I understand that, but I think that as a method, that's more a contingency table. Categorical is distribution is what comes out of it.
True. Could have this, same as with kernel density estimation, I guess.
I think you should leave contingency table. It sounds much more like a method. And I think you should go ahead and de-experimentalize all of these. I don't see any reason to leave them.
Yeah, except neural network, I think.
I sure hope this page has a see also to all of the, what is these ... dots here?
I think it's a bug. I just saw that before. And
by the way, this see also should surely point to net train.
Net train, yes, it should. And I'm surprised. Actually, I wonder if it's not supposed to be between these dots. But maybe we forgot that.
Also, I have to say that in that I think stuff like this should be iconized in documentation. I think that's that's a general thing. Raj, you should bring that up with Brian, I guess, is to go through and iconize, complicated plotting options like that when they're purely subsidiary.
Okay, I will mention it to him.
Okay. All right. I'm a little worried about a thing. Yeah, we are starting to use neural net as part of the default choice of methods, right?
Not right now. No. Right now it was too experimental. It's also quite of a different time scale. It's quite slower than the other ones.
But even with performance goal quality and things,
I'm pretty sure we don't at the moment. Like we're waiting one round. Maybe. I mean, the idea was to add it pretty soon, and actually it's working great. So we should add it when there's performance quality or very high time goal.
why not?
Yeah, no, we should add it. We were just to be careful because in the past this neural network method didn't work that well. Now it's working pretty well since we changed to self-normalizing neural networks.
Mm-hmm.
Slow, of course, but works well. So we should probably add it to the
Fine
thing. What are the detail and sub-option? Okay, I guess I can check that. But
what's that?
if you click detail and sub-option, you will see just the detail and sub-option.
Why isn't that that's a bug, by the way, Raj? That should show a thumbnail there. Yeah. Right, Raj?
Sure. Yep, I got it.
What the heck is this?
It's depth of the network.
Okay.
Kind of the number of layers. As a string, yeah, it's a sub-options. So all these methods.
The following sub-options can be given.
Well, it's the options of the method. I don't know.
Actually, I think it should say sub-options.
Yeah, internally we often refer to them as sub-options.
And also, I think it should have a pattern for how those sub-options are inserted.
What do you mean?
Well, it should say the following sub-options can be given in the form.
Oh, yes.
Neural net, blah, 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 optero, whatever it is, or something.
Yep. That's true.
Also, I don't understand why this type is smaller here than it is up here. I think that's a bug.
Yep, seems like it. And actually, there's not even a gray, so it must be a difference. Yeah.
Something goofed up there. Following that table, probably.
I see other issues with that page, so I'll file all of them.
Okay. What were you just raising? Oh, yeah, how the performance goal stuff works. Well, I think quality is a clear one there. I mean, another one which is classifier size, which I don't think. Oh, memory.
Yeah, storage. It's memory. Yeah. We don't control the training memory because this we assume it should be automatic by checking how much memory there's on computer.
Mohammed on a live stream is pointing out the contingent table has a name in the actuarial world. Is that the name? I think that's the name, isn't it? In other words, is it conflictive with what we're doing, or is it aligned with what we're doing? I believe it's aligned. Okay. Well, let's go on to the next item, text analysis. Do we need okay, this is just okay.
Yeah, this is going to be simple. There's really two things, right? There's text cases and all its friend, and then there's text structure.
Okay, so the main thing about text cases is I want to consider making interpretation be with the default.
That's one thing.
But maybe that's wrong. I don't know if that's right. I mean, it's good for demos. I'm not sure it's good for usage because obviously it's confusing when things aren't interpreted because the NLP loop doesn't close.
Yes, there is that many things are going to be removed because there's no interpretation. In some cases, there's big problems like for person, because our definition of person is whoever is a person, and the interpreter is like notable people.
Right.
There's things like that.
But interpretation just leaves the thing as a string. If it can't interpret it, it doesn't remove it.
When you just say text cases, yeah, it will remove it.
No, it doesn't. I've done it many times. It doesn't remove it.
Currently,
it doesn't remove it.
Okay, no. Okay. No, there's two things. There's the option verify interpretation. I thought you meant this. Verify interpretation will remove them when they have no interpretation, if you set it to true.
Yes.
Oh no, then the output I think should be a string, because it's a cases. You give a text which is a string, and you ask piece of this text. And also, sometimes it's not just one thing, right? It's like text cases of English, text cases of, and all the things that are written in English. I think, yeah, it should be string. Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Let's look again at okay, verify interpretation. Yeah, what do you mean it doesn't used anywhere? What do you mean it isn't used anywhere? I mean, it's the thing.
What? Oh.
You say for verify interpretation, it's not used anywhere.
Else than text cases. It's an option that is purely for text cases. So I don't know.
I bet it's going to be needed for other things like image cases and so on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about this. I mean, it is. You could end up with a rhinoceros in context, but if you try to verify it as an independent rhinoceros, it might fail, so to speak. I mean, I'm not sure what you want to have happen in that case. You see what I'm saying? That is, in the context, okay, it's a boat. You can tell it's a boat because it's got ocean around it, right? You then remove the boat and get just its bounding box, and you say, is it still a boat? Well, we don't know, perhaps.
It's a bit different, because in that case, it is two models, right? In this, like checking a database, like, do we have the... It's a bit
but I can imagine this happening in other places.
Yeah.
I admit that, I mean, our development of NLU is more extensive than our development of NIU, so to speak, for images.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think as long as test case is experimental, I don't see, and that it's not used anywhere else, I don't see why we should de-experimentalize that one.
No, absolutely not. Why does text cases have to stay experimental?
Because, I mean, yeah, I think it's not really about a design. I think the design, we kind of got it. It's more about the quality of the model.
Which is really not bad, I would say.
It's not for the common things, but truly, we advertise as 300 things we can recognize. Yeah. Well, it's just we created a data set with 300, but most of them we can't recognize anything.
Really?
I think so. We haven't had, because we didn't have a real test set done by hand yet, which we are trying to do. We don't know yet its weaknesses. And it has a lot. I mean, honestly, the model we used was kind of the first prototype of training a large, with a large training set with many types, and done with a bunch of heuristics, how we did the training set. I mean, I feel it's a definition of experimental for me. Like, we have been experimenting with this, and it giving something useful already, so we put it here. But it can be much better, and we're going to do it much better.
All right. Right. Okay, text element is part of a family of complicated things. I mean, we really need to look at this. It's also related to XML elements and these other things. Yeah, text. I'm sorry to say we probably do need to keep these experimental. What about snippet?
So I don't think it's my field.
Well, interestingly, yeah, I mean, there's a case for doing something like snippet. Tom Wickham Jones needed this in some stuff to do with the new data structure functionality. And I had forgotten about snippet, but it doesn't work on expressions. We might raise that with Tom. I mean, I think this is a separate. Let's raise that in an ILD meeting, please.
Sure. Yep.
And snippet on expressions and the relationship to what we needed for data structure.
Yeah, there's a bunch of symbols which are not my stuff. Autocomplete, snippet.
Autocomplete is a horror.
I don't know who that is.
It's a complete horror. It's completely crazy, in my view. And I don't know what happened to that project. And I don't know whether Sushma has that on the list on the global project list. Could Devin please? Is Devin the person who's here?
Yeah, I'm here. For what is this regarding? Again?
Autocomplete.
Oh,
But
yes.
it's a total mess, and I don't know what its status is. And does Sushma have it on the list? And is where is this thing? I don't even know, because it also relates to, a lot of what autocomplete is about having the API in the cloud to be able to do it. All right. Well, that wasn't very encouraging.
Hello.
Hi there.
Oh so you'll
boy.
Be less encouraged by this one.
Oh my gosh! Look at these.
This is terrible. All the neural network stuff. It's just one package.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree that.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
We hear you, Matthew.
Okay. Thanks.
Ethan on our live stream is complaining that text structure still fails on a famous grammatically correct sentence. I want to see what it does now. Oops. I can't even imagine what it thinks is going on here.
And I think it might even make sense if you add 2 more buffalo. I think I've seen it with 7.
Wait a minute. Is this not the correct parse? I don't know what the correct parse is, but that's not an obviously stupid parse, is it? Okay, nobody here can parse it as a human.
It's so confusing.
What's that?
It's extremely confusing.
I think actually it makes sense, right?
I don't know what it means, because I guess I don't know enough about the meaning. Okay, so
but
that is...
Yeah. I
so
think
the fact that it says it's an adjective there is odd.
I think the second to last buffalo should be the proper noun, but then maybe it should have been capitalized. I don't know.
Okay.
There is a key article about this, about this exact phrase and what each of those should be.
Okay, but listen, there's another issue here, which is this is tagging the word buffalo as an adjective, yet our part of speech system doesn't think it can be an adjective. See what I'm saying? So that's something is wrong there. You understand, Raj?
Sure, I'll report that.
Right. I mean, it's a bug of some kind somewhere. I mean, it may not be. It may be because we're using very different technology for this case. Okay. So did it get it right for this case? Can somebody look from the? Do I have to type in Wikipedia data of this?
There's 8 of them in Wikipedia.
Right. So that's the Wikipedia
not
link.
5.
There's 8 buffaloes.
There's 8 buffalo, and the third is capital. The first, third, and the second from last have uppercase.
Okay. I don't know how many.
I have no idea what this means.
That's 7, right?
So apparently there's a city named Buffalo,
Oh, there is, yes.
and there's the
Oh, I see. I'm beginning. Okay, which other one should be capitalized?
I think
second from last.
second to last, yeah.
Oh, I see. Buffalo, buffalo. No, I'm so confused. I don't know if that's correct. It doesn't look right to me, but I don't know. Okay, in any case, if this is our worst problem with text structure, I would say text structure is doing very, very well. Okay, let's go back to neural nets. So I kind of agree that we're not ready to de-experimentalize the whole thing. Because I kind of still feel that there may be some better formalism, particularly with all of the stuff to do with
net function.
Well, A, net function, and B, the ports, the way ports work. And I also wonder how ports relate to hypergraphs.
Hypergraphs.
Yes. In other words, could we formulate? I mean, ports. I don't think we formulated ports very well in graphs in general. Have we? I mean, graphs don't have ports in general.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed some time ago about a dedicated option to port settings when you construct a graph or a chain, which is something I think we should do.
By the way, it's a little hard to hear you, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the core graph functionality does not support ports for nodes. That is, but it does now support tagging of edges, right? Edge can now have tagging. So I'm confused what the relationship between tagged edges and ports is. And that's something we probably should ask Charles. Now, the only issue is that I think a tagged edge is an edge that has a tag where the tag is the same at the two ends of the edge, right? Whereas a port, we're saying this edge connects to this port of this node. See what I'm saying? Etienne, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we need to raise that, and Devin, I think that's for you, with Charles and the graph theory people, because I think that to me seems like it remains a weakness of the neural net framework, in that what we effectively have is a flow of data through these neural nets. That is, so we have a graph representing a flow of data, but we have these ports that are kind of hacky that say how the data is flowing into functions. It's like named arguments of functions, right? Is that a fair characterization? Anyway, I think there's more that could be done on this, and I have a feeling that as we build out hypergraphs and things, we may want to do that. So I kind of agree we should leave this experimental. Oh well, that's a lot of functions. Okay. By the way, on the live stream, Ali is suggesting a session where users can say things they want and get updates on how things are going. That is a perfectly good idea. I mean, what we have right now, we just recently started our sessions going over reported bugs and so on, but I agree that this is a perfectly reasonable suggestion, and perhaps Devin, you could take that suggestion and give it to Danielle in our node. And
Yes.
I mean, I'm perfectly up for that. I think it's a good idea. We just had an annual technology conference, and some of that happened. Well, that happened in a much more distributed fashion, not just with me at that conference, and we got a lot of to-dos from that, thanks to people who were there. All right, what are you doing with this? Is this all a bunch of X's as well?
Same,
Okay.
same from, yeah.
Why? Because you're saying it's
part of
all
the framework.
dependent on the. All right, fine.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And actually, there's some, yeah. We're ready to do some change when discussing possible multi-encoder, multi-input encoder, multi-input decoder that we kind of gave up because it was actually design-wise very complicated, like making things more complex rather than more simple.
Well, what you mean things where there's I don't understand. Well, you have heterogeneous data where you have audio and an image or something.
This case, I think, is fine, actually, right now. But sometimes you want to have one encoder that has two input instead of just one input.
Yeah, I understand.
Two outputs, actually. Not
encoder? No, two inputs.
No, an encoder is, the point is one input and you feed
Oh, I see. Yes.
parts of
Okay.
the output to different parts of the network.
Yes.
And that's an issue of ports or copying. Why isn't there given that we have this paradigm of having functions that just represent the different flow of data, why isn't there a sort of copy this port to two outputs type function? And I thought we had that.
No, the problem was basically just from the design point of view. It was hard to get it fit with the current logic and design of all the other tools in the frameworks and the way you do things.
We had a meeting once, I remember, about that, and you gave your you gave an idea to explore that I think in the end couldn't work for some reason. I kind of forgot.
Right.
But in any case, it was a big mess, and we kind of gave up, even though we had all the code ready and for one version. But
all right. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like the highest priority. It seems like, by the way, S on our live stream is complaining that the neural net repository seems stale, but I don't think that's true. I thought there were new things being put in all the time.
Definitely.
How do we look at it and see the maybe it looks stale because it's already got a lot of stuff in it. How do we look at the most recent things that have been added?
From the repository, I don't. Oh, they're browsed by date.
There is a tag you see on the bottom right. There's a new tag on self-normalizing net from numeric data. So that I think is supposed to stay there for like 2 weeks or something.
I see. Okay, so this gives a sense.
The rate at which models flew in did slow down a little bit. The main reason is that we kind of run out of interesting nets to import with the automated importers, and so the most recent nets had to be imported without using any automated tool, so just by hand, which takes
I understand. But so hopefully Onyx will be here soon. Exactly. And we will have a whole bunch of networks that can then be imported more easily.
Exactly.
So also important networks we added, like BERT, GPT, GPT-2, like this was like big stuff. Important and hard to import.
Right. So the answer is it should speed up again fairly soon as we get Onyx online.
Yeah. And also, as Etienne mentioned, it was quite of a challenge to correctly represent the transformers model. So BERT, GPT-1, and GPT-2, in the optimal way for the framework. And
it is good. It's pushing our framework. Like sometimes we have to update the framework to make this network work.
All right. Is okay. That's that for neural nets then.
All right then.
Okay. So thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye. I don't think this is going to go well, this chat discussion. Do we have the relevant people for the chat discussion here?
Jay here.
Yep. I mean, I don't think there's really anything to discuss here. With the fact that the channel framework is in flux and chat relies so heavily on it, I don't think there's any real way we can.
Every time I've tried to use chat, horrible things have happened. Now that may be because the underlying channel framework hasn't been strong enough, and hopefully that will be fixed very soon here.
I mean, you saw the competition that you saw that you were there for. That was using some chat behind the scenes, and it worked, I think, pretty well. So I mean,
but that was using the new MQTT server, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's because the other one was just a joke.
But it was still using the chat code. It was just running it on a new backend.
Right, but is it using the same functions here?
It's using the same code base. It wasn't actually using these. It was using some of these functions. Yeah, I guess the chat rooms were created using these functions. So I mean, yeah, the functionality was the Wolfram language top level functionality was the same, modulo a few tweaks that Jesse had to make it work on MQTT. But
okay, but look, once we have a solid backend there, then let's look at then we can relook at the chat design.
And that's,
I mean, I think with the first step here is going to be things like streaming notebooks and so on, for which we actually have a review this afternoon. And then we'll get to this other stuff after that.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think there's any point in talking about this until the back end's settled.
Fine. All right. I think that concludes our meeting. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to folks on the live stream, and see you all soon.